What's up, Walking Dead friends and family? It's Brian Castrillo back with another review. This is for Fear the Walking Dead, episode 11, Ophelia. And of course, this immediately brings me back to Ophelia Salazar, daughter of Daniel Salazar. Now, Daniel Salazar has always been my favorite character within Fear the Walking Dead, and I'll get into his background a little bit more. But Ophelia is his daughter, and of course, she died in an earlier season. And in my opinion, hands down, the saddest death in Fear the Walking Dead. Yes, I mean, you could bring up John Dory. That was a very sad death, but it just does, in my opinion, it does not compare to when Ophelia died. Not only was she a great character, but that's when Madison Clark, of course, was doing everything she could to try and at least get Daniel Salazar to see his daughter before she died, and just before that, Ophelia had saved many of them at the ranch, but ended up getting bitten, and Madison did everything she could to try and get Daniel Salazar a chance to say goodbye, and literally, he was there right as he pulled up, she passed away, and he did not get to say good. We're talking about minutes, and she died right before he got it. That, I don't think you can get sadder than that moment. For me, in Fear the Walking Dead, that is easily, hands down, the saddest death. But let's go on. So this episode, Ophelia, begins, and you see they're playing cards. Looks like match. You see a picture of a boat, and of course, this immediately brings me back to the Abigail. I'm thinking of Victor Strand, and I guess that's the direction they were going with, because now Ophelia is trying to get him to help him with his mental acuity, having him play match, trying to remember things. And he needs help with, trying to get back to the Daniel that we do remember. And he even calls Luciana Ophelia. So, and she reminds him, that's not, your daughter is dead. And he doesn't, he of course doesn't believe this. And then they go, the scene shifts and they go back to see Morgan. This has all happened on the sub, and we find out that Daniel takes off, but Morgan is basically telling Luciana that we need him, and this is because of his history with Victor Strand, he is the, and I mean, Morgan's right. This is the man. If Daniel Salazar is on his A game, there is really nobody better. And that could probably be said within the entire Walking Dead universe. The skills that this man possesses. If he knows Victor Strand, he is very vital to Morgan, in their plan, going forward. Now we see Daniel Salazar out and about, like looking, and he's saying Mija, which is he's calling out for his daughter. Ophelia, Luciana, and Wes eventually find him and catch up with him, and they get stopped by the stalkers. And they basically get kidnapped and go to where Arno's group is living. And Daniel Salazar, because of the match game, he remembers, the Abigail, and he believes that this was basically a sign that his daughter Ophelia needs him. And they get caught by the stalkers, and of course, and then when he's talking to Luciana, he kind of thinks that she's trying to basically take the place of Ophelia, even though she's trying her hardest to make him realize that Ophelia is no longer there anymore. And she's trying to help him, and Daniel thinks that, you're just trying to take her place. And he does mention, when they're captive, it seems like he remembers that he was, trained by the CIA. And Wes does seem to remember that, Arno's people are the ones that followed Teddy. Of course, we remember Wes had lived with them, not lived with them, but his brother did. And, and of course that was a rough scene for Wes. But then, you know, they're brought to this camp where they have like these kind of bridge set up. You got all these walkers down below, and you can see the radiation on their face, and they got this cage set up, and you know, Daniel Salazar sees a boat and he thinks it's the Abigail, which is crazy. He believes his daughter's on board, and it's heartbreaking to see Daniel Salazar like this, because of how we remember him. I mean, the man took a shot to the face and took out a bunch of men at the dam, went after Victor. This guy is legendary in my opinion. But Arno is basically, he wants Wes, and he's kind of saying, you know, because of his connection and who he knows, he puts him in this cage and is basically threatening to drop him down into the, you know, these walkers that have all this radiation, and basically get him eaten, because he wants the weapons that Morgan and basically Dwight's at over there. Now, in the beginning, the characters we saw, you know, Sherry was there, Morgan was there, Sarah's there, and they're off trying to get this weapons cache. Now, Wes being in the cage, and as he's loading him down, you know, Daniel and Luciana, in where they were locked up, they're basically coming up with a plan. And Daniel, he says he knows where, you know, the weapons are, and he's going to give it up. Luciano's trying to basically get him to say no, but they get let out, and they go up and they tell that, you know, Arno, that I will give you but, you know, I'll give you where the weapons are, but you have to, you know, you got to let Wes go, and you got to tell me where my daughter is. And that's just it. So eventually, you know, some back and forth, he lets Wes out, and he gives him these coordinates, which we find out later that basically Daniel was basically screwing with him and gave him the wrong one, which takes about a day to get. So that was giving him time. This is Daniel, and I'm like, wait a minute, maybe Daniel is just playing with him, because this is calculated moves by him. But I think where Daniel may be suffering is a little bit of short-term memory loss, but he still seems to have a lot of these skills. So he has not lost everything. But I'm going to get back to that. Now, after they go, you know, looking for the guard, we find out, you know, what Daniel did, and they go and find this guy who, you know, they threaten him. They try and get information from him. Daniel is basically has him over these walkers, and he wants to know where, you know, where Arno is, and, you know, where his daughter is. And then right as he's about to say, you know, I knew, you know, he yells out to Wes, I knew your brother, or whatever, and Daniel cuts his throat, which is basically upsets Daniel. And then they're basically getting ready to leave. They're going to cross the bridge, but Daniel kicks out the plank, so they can't come. And he says, you know, I don't want to get you hurt. You don't want to get me hurt, so I'm doing this on my own. And I'm sitting there watching. I'm thinking, you know, they should have tossed this, you know, that dead guy overboard. And I'm thinking, like, this guy's about to come up, but, you know, then I just noticed a little detail. He had the, you know, the hole in his head, so they did take care of that. So I thought in this episode, they really did a good job at little details. I really did enjoy this episode. Then we see Daniel come up behind Arno, and he puts him in that same cage later on. And he was basically talking, and he's, you know, he tells Arno, you know, you lied to me about my daughter. And we're going to get into that, about the lying and what that means. But he basically dropped him down. And this is one of the more gruesome, like, has to be painful deaths that I've seen in The Walking Dead. He drops Arno down in there, and his legs are out there, and they're basically just chewing up his legs. And eventually he brings him back up. He's still somewhat alive. And they're basically he gets him to say how someone's letting these walkers that are in the pit. And he kind of explains it. Someone's letting him out, which, I mean, if you're following along, that's got to be Victor. And one of the things that he's mentioning why he's doing this is that no one knew his real background. This is what Daniel's telling, you know, Luciana about his daughter. His daughter never knew. And then at the end, this, you know, Daniel and Luciana they basically got all the people that are there for, you know, Teddy's former group, and Daniels basically says to, you know, Wes and Luciana that believing that Ophelia was alive is it gave him clarity, and it brought him, because Luciana was like, how did you do that? And that the memory of his daughter basically gave him clarity to become the Daniel that we remembered. And you can see Wes and Luciana looking at each other, and they have a little moment where he's like, you're not, you know, about to do what I think you're going to do. And Luciana basically says yes. And Wes is like, you know, I can have no part of this. And so Luciana, you know, tells Daniel that if this is a lie, this could really break me for good. And Wes wants nothing to do with this, and he leaves. And we find out later that he, at the end of the episode, that he actually went up to the tower and tells, you know, Victor that I can help you with, you know, against her. So he basically turned his back on the group. And an interesting moment right before all this happened is Daniel Salazar goes to Luciana, and he says, even though we're not blood relatives, as of today, we're family. And family, and I could tell you, like, especially like in Latino backgrounds, I am Latino. My grandfather was from Nicaragua. And before my grandparents passed away, I got to go to my grandparents' hometown, or home country, and actually got to visit where he was born in Bluefields, Nicaragua, where he lived, got to visit, and it was really cool. And I got this hat, from Nicaragua, which I'll always keep with me. A lot of great memories there, and I'm so glad I got to visit that while they were still alive and still, you know, cognizant of everyone around them. And we got to do this as a family. So Mi Familia is very important in Latin culture, and family values are very strong. So when I heard Daniel Salazar tell, you know, Luciana that as of today we're family, you know, I felt that. I felt that moment, and I knew what that meant. And then seeing Luciana, the character, say that, you know, lie to him, you know, I couldn't believe she did that. And it's almost like she took a sort of a villainous role just to get what she wants. This is very similar to what Victor Strand is. And I was, you know, I was disappointed in the character. I mean, I love Luciana. I'm very drawn to her character, and Daniel Salazar, you know, of course, being Latino, having family from Central America, I was always drawn to them, and I love their characters. I love Danay Garcia, who has done an amazing job. I love Ruben Blades, who has done an amazing job. And Colby Holman has been amazing in this episode. And I went back and forth on who to choose for MVP, but I've always been drawn to them, and I was disappointed in the character of Luciana doing that to Daniel, because I know what that meant. And if you go back to, you know, her earlier character, I know family was big on her. So this is her taking somewhat of a villainous role, very similar to Victor Strand, to just get what she wants. Now, her in-game, what she wants is to help everybody, but the path she took, is that the right path? And of course, Daniel says, if this is a lie, you know, you need to tell me now, because this will literally break me. But this is what Luciana sees as the way to bring Daniel how we used to know him, because you're going to need that Daniel up against Victor Strand. That's no doubt. I mean, he is a badass mofo. And let's get into that. Now, I'm reminded of a few scenes in the history of Daniel Salazar. I remember, you know, him talking to Victor in jail when he had locked him up. And he had told him how he lied to Ophelia and his about his past. And let's talk about his past real quick. He was a secret agent of the Salvadorian junta and the CIA, Sombra Negra, which is known for murder, torture, and kidnapping. These are former military, former cops, very brutal group. If you look up the history of them, I mean, they are real. And this is the background of what Daniel Salazar is. And he's talking about how his past, he hid that from her because he didn't want her to think of him as what he did. And he didn't tell her, and he blamed himself. He because of her death, he never got that opportunity to apologize and like tell her what he did. And he feels that Morgan's plan was kind of helping him sort of basically saving grace or making up for his past, and that because Morgan wanted to help people and he felt that would kind of help him. And I also go back to when they were, I believe I'm not sure if it was Texas or Mexico, where he was tied up, and Griselda, he saw his wife Griselda Salazar, and he was tied up, in the chair, and he's seen his dead wife. She mentions about a memory that had haunted him, and she says it's his first victim, and he goes back to as a kid where, the Sombra Negra first got him, and they had him kill this man. They handed him a gun, and it was his first victim. And she says, no, the first victim was you, because this is where he started to lose himself. And he never got to have a childhood because he was instantly trained to be a killer. And I thought that was a very big moment in his career, in his lifehood, whatever. And the other thing is when he, that final moment when with Madison, that was a really somber moment. He at one point it looked like he was going to kill Madison, but he did not. But the thing we know about this is that he has essentially lied about to basically protect his daughter Ophelia, protect her from what he was, but he never got a chance to make up for that. He never got a chance, and this, I believe, is being suppressed in his past. I don't know if it's necessarily dementia or anything. I don't really think I feel like it's some sort of suppressing of that, and because some of the badass, like crazy murder tactics, torture tactics, and we saw some of this in the episode Cobalt, some of the things that he is known to do, and he was trying to basically suppress that to make up to his daughter, because he wanted to give her a life that she didn't have to worry about, which is very kind of tied to what Madison is. And because she wanted, of course, to give him that. That's what the Dell Diamond Stadium was supposed to be. And I feel in a way their stories are somewhat parallel, because both of them wanted to give their children something better and for them, and their whole purpose was for their children. So I believe this is basically setting up a lot of stuff for Madison. Now, we did hear, now I mentioned how that moment where Madison, brought Ophelia in her final, her final moments before, and he never got to see her. And Luciana also mentions how before, Daniel Salazar, she had nobody too. And let's see, what did she say? She says, you were right when you said you didn't have anybody. And if I'm being honest, I haven't since I lost Nick. So this is, of course, a bring back to Madison's family. And I believe that Daniel Salazar, he needs Madison. I think Madison is going to bring him back, because those two had a lot of mutual respect. And he always respected her for how she helped Ophelia. And I believe that when she comes back, she's going to play a big role in Daniel Salazar. The problem is now that now that Luciana lied to him. And, you know, think about what Daniel Salazar did in respect to Victor. When he came, because he disappeared for a little bit, but when he came back, he blamed Victor because he lied to him about, you know, her being alive. He said that, you know, Victor, and he came gunning for him. Now Luciana, who he just said, you know, from this day on, your family, and she just lied to him to get what she want. This is going to set off some major things, and I'm worried now that this could been sort of a premonition, not a premonition, but basically a foreshadowing of Luciana's death, and I'm very nervous about that. But my MVP for this, and I went back and forth because, you know, Colby Holman was amazing as Wes, Ruben Blades was amazing as Daniel Salazar, and Danay Garcia was amazing as Luciana Galvez, and I really had a difficult time with the picking one. But I ultimately am going with Luciana Galvez, played by Danay Garcia, because she expanded her role, and she showed that she can play other sort of somewhat of a villainous arc, and I believe her character got a little more depth and going forward. And it's going to get scary because this Daniel Salazar, if he's going to get back his old ways, this is not good for, it's definitely not good for Victor Strand, but it may not be good for our people. But what did you guys think? Did you enjoy this episode? I really liked it. I think this was an excellent story to set up for what's coming forward. Now, Wes going, you can say he's kind of backstabbing the group, which to some extent he is. But at the same token, I don't blame him, because I felt kind of dirty when Luciana lied to Daniel Salazar like that. So in a way, I don't blame him, but still, we're skating on thin ice here. But what did you guys think? Did you enjoy this video? Because I really did, and I hope you did. What were your takes from this episode? What do you think is going to happen with Wes, Luciana, Daniel Salazar? How does this affect Madison going forward? Now, at the end of the episode, we also found out that Morgan and everybody did find all the weapons, so they got the weapons cache, and they're talking about how, and Daniel Salazar looks like a solid leader, and he says, you know, now we got to plan how we're going to take down the tower. So that was a very big moment. But yeah, I love this episode. I want to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comments. Now, in this one, as always, I give shout outs to my friends and pages that I want to see, you know, get lifted a bit. And this one is going to two Walking Dead family members, Lou Temple, who played Axel, and Vincent Ward, who played Oscar in season 3. I personally met both of them, and they are absolutely wicked cool, hilarious. Two of my most positive meetings within the Walking Dead family, and they have this new podcast. It's on YouTube, and I'm gonna put the link on there. But it's called "It Takes Two" with Vincent and Lou. They'll have guests on there, some that actors they worked on. But it's gonna be more personal. They want to talk about, you know, family, friends, not just being, you know, a celebrity. But you know what? Don't take my word for it. Check out this video that I'm stitching at the end of this, and I'll let them explain what it is themselves. But as always, I love you guys. Thank you for following. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like. If you're not subscribed already, please hit that subscribe. Share this with your friends. And as always, I love you guys.
Me out?
No. What up? Me and Lou here. We just finished the first episode of It Takes Two with Vincent and Lou.
Fishing's fine.
How you feel about it?
I'm excited. I got to tell you, I haven't been excited like this very often, and it's just flow, man.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's all about the flow, man. Damn, why my hair got beat up? It's all about the flow, and it's all about the friendship and professionalism that we're bringing to you guys. And like I said on the show, if you have a client, if you're a publicist or a manager, you have a client that wants to come on the show, make sure you hit us up at It Takes Two, the number 2, or the word TWO. It Takes Two with VL at gmail.com.
Yeah. Also, if you've got a product that you want pitched or pimped or a little advertising, drop in. We can work something out.
Yeah, most definitely, man. But you guys are definitely going to enjoy this podcast. It's not about just, us. It's not about just celebrities. It's about your everyday 9-to-5 workers, teachers, whatever.
Yeah, everybody. Musicians, athletes.
Comedians.
Dentists.
Yep.
Yeah, mailmen.
So, hey, we
And
ever
women.
work together, we ever ball together or whatever, we're definitely going to hit you up to come on the show, and we're going to have a good time.
Yeah, it's going to be great, and you're part of it.
All right. It Takes Two with Vincent and Lou. Peace.